Hey guys, this is Adrian from PDC coming at you with yet another video. Last time I promised you that we would bring a very special guest, and I have delivered. So it is my honor to introduce our very special guest and really incredible player, Ren, who was able to top 8 with Reiju last weekend at the Santa Clara offline regionals. So without further ado, Ren, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hey guys, what's going on? This is Ren, also named Clarence. So I got top 6 with Reiju in the Santa Clara offline regionals. Before that, I also got top 14 at one of the Gen Con offline regionals, which was one of my first events that I went to. Playing Zoro at that time, and I got 2 top 32 finish and then 1 33 finish that I just bubbled out of.
That's really awesome. So guys, we have a lot of stuff in store today. This is going to be a very juicy deck profile. First off, we're going to go through Ren's winning list. I think that it is the de facto best Reiju list out there right now. And then we're going to go through more in depth his amazing run last Saturday. And then we're going to go through some matchup coverages, right? What are the winning cards in every matchup, and so on and so on. So Ren, go ahead and get started.
All right, so we ended up getting top 6 with Reiju. I honestly think this is the biggest high roll deck there is in the format. It's really weird because if you see stage, you're definitely an S, maybe S plus tier. But then without stage, you better pray because it kind of hovers between B to C depending on what you draw. So obviously the Ren or the deck runs on the Kingdom. Helps you trash a card and then pick up whatever you need. And then you have your Searcher, Germa 66. So the main reason for this is basically just in case you mulligan and you don't find stage, you're able to look for it with this. So instead of you just banking on 4 out of 50 cards in your deck, you have 8 chances technically to kind of look for it. So it's kind of needed. And aside from that, it helps you look for the pieces that you need. And then the standard, you have your babies, the Reiju, the Niji, and your Ichiji. This is completely standard. Everyone, I think, should be running 4 of each. Ichiji just upgrades into the big boss monster of a 7-drop, like a 7 cost, 7k, hard to get rid of. Niji helps you bounce things back to their hand. It's good tempo play if you're playing against yellow. And then, of course, Reiju helps you draw 3 cards technically, draw 2, leader ability, draw 1. So 3 cards is insane for a start off. And then obviously the upgrades, Reiju, Niji, and the 7-drop. And as I explained, some people run the Yonji, the blocker, but personally I think you don't really need that card. It's a 4-drop, and it has really niche capabilities just because in this format, 4-drop blocker isn't really going to block anything. It's going to get rested, it's going to get KO'd or slept, and it can't really do anything, right? And then besides that, I think if you're going on a turn, these guys provide so much more value than the Yonji would. So you never really want to play Yonji down. And then obviously you run 2 judges.
Ren, is there a meta that you could see running just any sort of Yonji, or is it just not that high value of a card?
I think at the moment not, because like I said, there's just so many blockers, right? The only blocker you need, I'll talk about it later, but at the moment I don't think I need it at all. Because even if you judge, to completely pull board is kind of unnecessary. It's a good plus, but most of the time you're not really going to need it. So we have 2 judges here. I think you only need to run 2 because most of the time you just need to see one of it, right? Once you see one of it, you play it down, you play everything with it, and then your Dawn is going to be so low already to the point you're not even going to be able to play the other one. The game's most likely going to end by the following turn or the next few turns.
Just a quick question. Out of your 9 rounds, how many times were you able to play judge?
I'm thinking about it actually. Probably none.
Wait, for real? Yo, that's crazy.
There's a lot of times against Sakazuki and Moria. I think it would have been a good play or I mean, I didn't play against any Moria, so it was just Sakazuki that I could have played it, but I was just in such a big lead that I didn't really need to put it down. It was just an extra for me to put it down, which I don't think I really needed at that point.
So, is there an argument that maybe Reiju lists wouldn't need to run Judge, or do you think that that's still a great finisher?
I think it's a good finisher. I think it's more so. So in one of my games, right? If I couldn't finish him on that turn, or if he somehow got rid of all my board, then that would have been a perfect time to judge. But the fact that he wasn't able to get rid of any of them on the board, there was no reason for me to judge, right? I could just swing with all of them and then kind of just end the game from there. But it's definitely a fallback option. It's kind of like your emergency, like, get me out of here card. Like when everything's looking down, you just play this and then, bounce everything, rush them, and then draw the 2 cards that you need from Reiju.
Sounds good.
And then we have 4 of the Sora. Pretty staple, helps you grab a baby to upgrade him. So many times I probably played that. Kaya helps you kind of unbrick your hand. I'd be careful though playing this down, just because if you're putting it down, it's a -1 card advantage either way. So most of the time, the only time I really play this is if I have a multiple Ichiji, the 7-drop on my hand. And so even if I'm done or minusing 1 card, I'm getting rid of 2 dead cards. And then 4 double finger. The 4 double finger, I've seen a lot of people play other 2K counters, which I think is valid. They play Gion, I think is like for Nami, right? But I think though in Nami, you could probably just rush him down. But I mean, I haven't really played too much Namis, so I just opted to play double finger, just so if I'm on 5 dawn turn and I really need to judge on the following turn to keep up the tempo, I just hard cast it, gain 1 dawn, and then next turn I'll be on judge turn.
Yeah.
But mostly it's a 2K counter though.
Yeah, I think overall it's like a secondary effect. Outside of it being a 2K counter, I think double finger is just such a crazy card, right? Like it can cheat you some games, right? Like just having an extra body.
So. Yep. Yeah, definitely. That's also one of the reasons I got it, just in case they do go for lethal, and then somehow, some way, I just trigger into a body, then I'm just gonna swing for a game, right?
Yep.
And
it's the typical Ploofy experience.
Yeah. And then we have 2 puddings. Some people opted to run more of it, but I think 2 is perfectly fine. You draw enough to kind of see it. And I think the main deck that this really is just needed is Sakazuki. Also, even if you don't have it in hand, sometimes it kind of does the job, because some people are just so scared of it that they'll toss out the 2 cards without you even playing pudding. And so like even then, it's just the threat of having it in your hand is just enough to kind of do the work.
Yeah, I do want to ask, similar to Judge, how many times were you able to play pudding this run?
Oh, this one was a lot. I think I played it 1 time against Enel, 1 time against Sakazuki, and I think that's it for the time being. The other times I had it in my hand, but he was countering everything, even if it's taking him 2 cards, which I was okay with. But at least I had that pudding in my hand if ever he does become greedy, and he ends up just keeping a big hand size. And then we have Queen. The only blocker I think you need, helps you to kind of declutter your deck. If you're completely bricked up, you put it down, you draw 2, trash 1, and then draw another one. So that extra draw power from your leader and just the cards from Queen is just, honestly, it's a game-winning play. I've won a lot of games in my run playing this card down.
Sweet. So yeah, guys, this was the deck list. We're gonna go ahead and talk about Ren's amazing regional run. Ren, can you just sort of describe your record and the decks that you played against?
Okay. So on the Santa Clara regionals, I ended up going, I think it was 9 rounds, right? I ended up going 9. I went all the way up to round 6 undefeated, and then I lost against one of the PDC members, I think. Kelvin on Enel. We'll talk about that sometime on this video. But that was my one loss, and then but most of the time I went against Katakuri, Sakazuki, one Reiju, and Yamato. But a big bulk of it was Sakazuki and Katakuri.
Oh, yeah. I guess what would you even like? Even though you lost against NL, right? It doesn't necessarily mean that it's the hardest matchup or the easiest one. What would you consider like the toughest matchup for you, and the easiest matchup during this run?
I think my hardest matchup was, I would say, the Katakuri one, just because it was 1K off. I ended up getting the cards I needed to kind of pull off the win, right? I ended up playing Reiju, draw 2 cards. It was all 2Ks. Draw another, played Queen, draw a 2K, draw 1K.
That's crazy.
And then I triggered the Germa 66 to give me another 2K.
Wow, so you kind of just snuck that, huh?
Yeah, I think so.
All right. Well, I think that's an interesting matchup to talk about. Well, before we go into that, I guess can you get kind of I think one thing I wanted to do to share with the audience is how, you know, us as like really competitive players, you know, our mindset going into these tournaments. Like what do you do to kind of keep yourself up and motivated to basically play out an entire day of, you know, tournament, high level competition, right? Like, is there any sort of tips and tricks that you usually do to keep yourself, you know, at tip top shape?
Okay, honestly, I'm gonna be honest. The day before, actually, so I was playing Reiju because, background story, I've been playing Sakazuki last set. Nats ended up going 6-3, I think. So just one short off the top 62. Also lost against a PDC member.
We're gatekeepers.
They're just looking me left and right. But so I was just playing Sakazuki the whole way, and then when this set started, I had a game plan, right? I wanted to play Sakazuki initially, and you know, just keep focusing on the best deck because that's what I've been playing. But what happened was, I kind of thought to myself, I've been playing Sakazuki this whole time. I need to try something new, and if ever it doesn't work out, I can go back to Sakazuki, right? So I ended up playing Reiju. Me and my friends, we do this it's like the tournament that we did. It's like an in-house tournament. Top 8 players that we had in our locals. We pick our decks, right? I ended up picking Reiju after playing it for like 30 minutes with my brother, right? And then I was like, yo, this deck is fun. All right, let me play it. And then he was actually trolling me. He was like, bro, you're trolling. You just literally touched that deck as you're playing it. So I played that. And then I ended up making it to the finals, but I lost. No, I was in the semifinals. I lost against Sakazuki. And then, you know, I just was playing it for 2 weeks already, so I just played it. And then I was just like, oh, maybe this is what I'll just bring to Nats, right? Or regionals. So the day before, I was playing with Awakened TCG at his crib with his brother, and also Cross and Karar, right? And then, I kid you not, the day, like on that day, I played with my girlfriend because she plays from time to time. Got in the event, she just wanted to play 1 to 2 games, right? So I played against her category. I lost against her, right? And then when I went to the playtesting area with Awakened TCG and all of them, I went 0-5. I didn't win a single game against them. And I was like, bro, I made a mistake, dude. I ran this deck, and then obviously they're like, bro, you're trolling. You know, you were a Sakazuki player, and then you played this. So I was like, damn, bro, I'm kind of cooked. So after that, I was driving home, and I was kind of like, you know, you kind of just have this awakening moment, right? You're kind of like, bro, how did I like lose all these games so bad, right? So I kind of went to the realization I was kind of just playing brain dead, right? I wasn't playing how the deck was supposed to be played. I was Dawn minusing a little too much, not thinking about like the future turns that I'm gonna play, and I'm just playing the most like basic way that you should be playing a deck, right? And so when I got home, I was just doing some watching some like YouTube videos, read some articles or something, and everything just kind of clicked, honestly. And then the day of the event, wasn't confident at all, right? But then after 1 to 2 games, everything just started to run smoothly. Everything made sense, and then I just went undefeated.
Actually,
And then lost again. You know?
that's that's crazy you say that because a similar story happened to me. So, you know, I'm a Sakazuki player, right? That's kind of like my claim to fame. But going into this format, I was over in Asia traveling, and so I didn't really have time to master 06 Saka, which is a complete different beast, right? 05 Saka is training wheels. So I just couldn't get over the fact that I couldn't consistently beat Katakuri. Maybe I just wasn't that great of a player, but I felt like I would just lose to a bunch of bullshit anytime, any place.
Agreed.
So I decided I was practicing 07 Moria in the Asia scene in Hong Kong, and I think I learned a lot. So I was like, okay, Moria has really good matchups. I think it's the right meta call for this event, which is great for me. But I did that with the intention that I thought Katakuri would be a free matchup. And the day before, I lost so many Katakuri games as Moria. And I was like, this isn't free. I'm getting smoked. And then I think, on Friday, 2 a.m. to Saturday, I was just up all night watching YouTube videos, trying to figure it out. And I just realized, kind of like you, I was like, I'm playing this wrong. I should just be going face and just ignoring everything and pretending triggers don't exist, pretending to reject Amara doesn't exist. So it's kind of crazy that we kind of had like the same sort of story with our different decks going into the event. That's really cool. I guess to sort of wrap up this part of our video, is there any tips that you would give to players that are competing in the next regionals, you know, while they're playing the event? What kind of thought that they should have round after round?
Okay, so I think going into the regionals or any event in general, play a deck that you're comfortable with, right? Because if I definitely played Sakazuki, I didn't know the matchup spread, I didn't know the niches of the deck because it's a completely new deck, like you said, right? So one day wasn't enough for me to change from this into Sakazuki. So kind of just completely understand your deck, know your matchups, and then usually each matchup has its own specifics that you kind of have to understand. And then once you understand that, you'll be ready to go and just have a positive mindset. Coming in, I was just kind of thinking like, you know, I'll just do my best and then see where it goes from there, right? And look, I ended up getting top 6 with it, so.
Yeah, congrats again. Okay, guys, we're gonna transition over to matchups. This is if you're a competitive player and you want to be good at Reiju, this is where the juice is. I spoke to Ren about this before, and you know, he's comfortable with sharing this. So let's go ahead and get right into it. Why don't we get started with the Katakuri matchup? Like, what kind of tips do you have? What are the winning cards in that deck? Yeah, go ahead.
So round 1, I actually played against Katakuri, right? I think the whole game plan kind of just runs the same on any Kata matchup. I went against 3 Katakuris, I would say. 1 in the first round, 1 in the 4th round, and 1 in the 8th round, right? So I'll kind of talk about the first round first against Katakuri. I remember I didn't have any of the big Niji on my hand, but even then, on turn 3, no upgrades. I think your best play is still putting a body down, right? So I swung 5, no triggers, obviously, and I played 3-cost Niji, just flat out, no upgrades, nothing. So doing this kind of scares them off from triggering or putting down a Parasparrow from the following turn, right? But even if they put him down, you could upgrade, bounce it back, slow the tempo down, and then next turn, you could actually play the 4-drop again, and then swing 7, right? So you're just building a way bigger tempo than initially just upgrading this into a big body already, and then swinging with it. I think in general against Katakuri, you have to play it fast. You cannot play it slow because once they 7-mop and then you give them life, you're just giving them extra luck factor in their deck, basically. Extra triggers that's just gonna take the win. So every time they 7-drop, you trash it completely. Doesn't matter how healthy or how not healthy you are, you should be already planning to take at least 1 life from that 7-drop. So that means that if they swing 7, there's going to be a time where you're going to have to counter off on one of the 7 so that you're able to safely trash trash a life on that on their 7-drop turn.
So
And,
you're do you usually take the first life just so that you can get around Gidatsu, or do you just stay at 4?
I just stay at 4, honestly. Depending, right? Because if they swing 5, that's just the easy counter for me. I wouldn't mind just tossing out a 1K for it. But if they swing 7, that's definitely a tag that I'm just gonna take, right? But initially, so with Reiju against Katakuri, I honestly think going second wins you the matchup. Probably like it boosted up by 70 or maybe even 80%. Because if you think about it like this, they're putting things on curve every single time, right? Meaning they'll only attack you for 5K. Reiju can easily fend off any attacks on 5K because you get so much draw power from your leader ability and your Reiju. So all those tempo or all that threat that usually they'll have to kill you, it's not going to be there because by the time they 7-drop, most likely you'll still be at 4 or 3 life, right? So you can easily just trash that and then build the tempo that way by just swinging with Niji and Ichiji. The closest match I had, I would say, was on round 4. It was against Katakuri as well. Same game plan, Niji and Ichiji, right? These things just keep swinging and bouncing everything back to their hand. But the thing was, I couldn't go for lethal because he had so many cards in his hand. He had just a healthy life, right? Even though I was trashing all my life from the 7-mom, he just still had a healthy life. He had a lot of counters in hand and everything like that. So since I couldn't go for game, I opted to swing for board. He let the Gidatsu die because he was completely bricked up. But even then, he had a 7-drop Big Mom, and he had a Peril Sparrow and leader ability, right? I was on 1 health, so reject is definitely coming down, right? So the best play I could do is not push for game because obviously that's probably worse than staying alive, right? So I just played down. I had a 7 Dawn in that turn, so I played down Reiju. I upgraded it, drew 4 with drew 3 with the leader ability and Reiju. So I drew 3. It was a 2K, 2K, and a 1K. And then with the remaining Dawn, I played 5 for Queen. I draw 2 again. It was like a 2K, 1K or something like that. And then I just trashed the dead card, obviously, right? Because I'm just trying to live this turn. And so I knew I had enough counters in my hand. But to make it worse, he rejected me, and then I triggered into Germa 66 to draw another 2K.
Nice.
That definitely just solidified the game because the only thing he could have done at that turn was swing completely with his board. But, obviously the first attack, I counter off. The second attack, you block it. And then the last attack, you just counter it off. Yeah. So I had enough to counter off, I think, 2 of the 9K hits or something like that.
Yeah, so your sequence, your entire sequence, you got 10K in counter alone.
Yeah,
that's
crazy. So
yeah.
I mean, also another thing you plan for against yellow is to just hold the counters, right? Because most of the time your blockers aren't going to do anything. You just have to be prepared to kind of counter out all their attacks, like especially on that last game moment. And then round 8, the Katakuri again. This guy, I think, completely bricked up. He was playing Pudding, gets a 10 mom on his Peril. I think he was getting 10 moms with it again. So he was just reading his hand. He just had all 10 moms, right? So he was countering off early, but he didn't have any threat on the board. So what ended up happening was he was just swinging on my Ichiji. I think he was just wanting to go to late game. But I think that's the wrong play because even if it dies, you're swinging at a 7K, right? And then if it dies, I get to just retrieve it back with the little baby Ichiji, and then it's back to everything all over again, right? So I think for Katakuri, on that sense, I think you just have to push for game and kind of just, hope for your triggers to kind of just go crazy, I guess.
Yeah, that's really good insight on how to play against Katakuri and also for how Katakuri should play against Reiju. It just seems like both game plans are swing at each other's face and hope for the best. Yeah. So I think the next most interesting matchup, you did play against Sakazuki the most, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, can you give any tips on how to play against Saka?
So Sakazuki, Went against it on round 2, round 5, and also round 8, round 9, the last round. Honestly, I can go through the round 2 one because this one I completely remember my whole hand just because it was so nuts. I can't even lie, it was a nuts hand. It was Stage, it was Germa, it was, let's see, it was this guy and this.
By the way, guys, I remember what Ren said. This is the most high rolling leader ever. If Reiju has the nuts, no deck is beating it. So keep going.
So this was my hand against Sakazuki. Not too sure if I went first or second. I think it might have been first, maybe. So looking at this hand, right? You have your searches, you have your Germa, which is the only thing you need, and you have pudding, right? So initially, you want to go Germa 66 first, right? I know some people are like, oh, you should probably use this first, but you want to go use this first because I'm looking for a 7 drop here, right? So if I get a 7 drop, next turn, I can easily discard it for free, and then without really, discarding any counters or any viable cards in my hand. So I played this, I got a 7 drop, and then I think I just played this the following turn to trash the 7 drop. And then I think I swung 7 in his leader because I didn't have any other plays, right? I'm trying to think if I went first or second. I think I might have went. I think I went second actually. So I did all this in the first turn right here. So I had all my game plan set up, and then next turn, obviously, I'm just gonna be putting down ETG and swing 7, right? So next turn, second turn, I swung 5, put down ETG, retrieve the 7 drop, swing 7 in his leader. He takes it. And then on his turn, he's just searching, right? He's looking at Tashigi, putting down brand new. But the main thing is he couldn't get rid of the 7 drop. So when he couldn't get rid of the 7 drop, I knew everything was kind of just in my favor because I had this guy right here, Pudding, right? So next turn, I just swing 7 again, right? He takes it, which is okay. He has 8 cards in hand, and all of it was search from Tashigi, brand new, and Great Eruption, right? So he was building his hand already. Like he knew what cards he had in hand. And then I just put down the Pudding on that turn. And then you kind of just look at their face, right? Like all the deck, like all the hand building that they do, all just kind of crumbles away, and it kind of just falls down at that point, right? Because after that, I just put one on my leader and I swing 6. He's already at 2 life, so he's throwing out a counter. He's down to 4 cards in hand, with it being his 3rd turn. So like it's just hard for them to really do anything to remove, right?
Yeah.
And I think at that point it was just smooth sailing because like just having these in your board, like, and little hand size, there's only so much Sakazuki can do.
Yeah, just to give people context, Sakazuki works a little bit differently from the 05. In 06, you have so many cards that you need to have to hold just for your combos to work. You need to have those reductions, have those removals, and also have Moria and prepare for Moria all at the same time. So for Sakazuki, having a hand size of 5 or less is just really not viable. As a Saka player, if I were in that situation, I would even have considered taking that hit just so that I could be up to 6 cards. That way I could play out my next turn, because with 4 cards in hand and ECG, a boss ECG to deal with, there's really nothing I can do, right? Like it seems pretty done at that point.
Yeah. So that was that first Sakazuki round, and then on one more, I went against one on round 5. So this one is a little different, right? Because I did have Pudding. I think I had Stage. I wouldn't be here without Stage. So let's just assume I either drew into it or I found it somehow in my deck.
Wait, really quick. How many times did you not draw Stage turn 1, turn 2 in the whole 9 rounds?
Turn 2. I think there was one completely game I did not draw Stage, and it was against Yamato actually. Like I didn't see it from beginning to end of the game, but I still won it. The other games, it's either I have it on my hand, or at least I have the searcher to look for it, or I somehow just draw it on my hand, right? So I would say it's like a luck factor, right? It just happens.
By the way, you should have lost that Yamato game. that's crazy that you won it.
I think actually, I'll talk about it some more. I think the Yamato game is actually not as bad as what it seems like, right? I think the win rate is actually pretty good from how I was playing it, I think. But on this Sakazuki match on round 5, so I had these hand, right? But I'll just say these are the main hand, right? So I was swinging 7 with this, obviously. But this time around, he was actually getting rid of my cards, right? He was bottoming everything. So I'm kind of like reading his hand, right? He has the removal in his hand. I'm swinging 7. He's countering off 2 cards, which I think is still a plus for me either way. I know his hand is good, so most likely he'll have the Ice Age, right? There's no way that you're countering off 2 cards from your hand if you don't have a good hand. So he's doing the own job putting by tossing out those cards. And then I'm also getting a read on his hand because now I know he has a pretty nuts hand. So he'll probably be able to get rid of my ETG. So I remember I'm like searching something, right? Even though I have this on board already, I'm opting out to pick it up again because I had this guy on my hand, right? So even if he bottoms the first one, I'll be able to kind of keep up the pressure and swinging 7 again. So it's kind of like who runs out the most, like who's gonna run out of gas the most, right? I'm gonna keep searching for my 7 drop and I'll keep swinging with him. And then I think actually on this game, I definitely could have judged, but for some reason I thought he just had multiple Hound Blazes in hand and he was gonna go for a game. So I tossed out my judge to get more 2Ks, but I think I was just in such a big lead at that point that it didn't matter if I did have judge or not. But that's one of the instances where I probably would have had would have played judge the following turn, just because he gets rid of my board and then I just put everything back again, keep up the pressure, and then it's a done deal for sure. But yeah, the game plan just stuck. Honestly, as a Sakazuki player, I don't know how you play around putting, because like you want to not get your hand shuffled, but then you also don't want to toss out so many cards to the point you have no ammo to kind of get rid of my board, right? Because if you have 5 cards in hand, most likely you'll be able to get rid of 1 or 2 things, but then after that, you'll probably have nothing else to kind of get rid of, right?
Yeah, I think just this seems like the way we're explaining it really does seem that it's like incredibly Reiju favored, but I think it's important for people to understand that if Saka, like, the early game is really tough for Saka, but once he gets the Moria out, Reiju doesn't really have a way to deal with that. Big bodies are Reiju's weakness. They have so much pressure early on that if Saka is able to control the board just for one moment, he'll never be able to he doesn't need to let that go, and he'll just push for the game. So it's definitely a swing and a miss, but yeah, dude, this Saka explanation is actually like really, really amazing. I think a lot of players are going to learn a lot from this and understand how they could take the most advantage of Reiju's early game ability to just push Saka to its limit. Let's say, are there any other? We covered Katakuri, we covered Sakazuki. I think the third major one, right, of the tier 1 meta is probably Moria. I know you didn't play against any of them during this run, but really briefly, what cards do you think are good into that matchup?
So I haven't played against a lot of Moria. I mean, the Moria I played with was Wraith Talks, which is Awakened TCG, which I got cooked. But I think a big factor of that was I wasn't in the right mindset, right? I didn't know how the deck was running. I wasn't on a roll that I was today. But if I was to go back, I think the main thing is still the same, right? You kind of play Moria like how you would with Sakazuki, but the main thing is you have to kind of read their board. So there's a lot of board reading that you have to do, just because obviously you want to put down your 4-drop or the 7, right? To swing 7 at their face, but you also want to kind of methodically figure out what cards on their board can you kill, right? Because if you kill an Absalom, this was happening in our place testing, right? I was just killing Absalom, and then he was just retrieving it back with his leader ability, and then he just had Ice Age after Ice Age. So he was just killing all my ETGs nonstop on turf. And at that point, it's just hard to kind of win the game, right? So the next game, I think I was pushing for a game and then just ignored all his board. But then even then, that one's a little tough because even though there's 5k swings, he's just milking your cards with every 5k hit, right? And then he's a 5 health leader, so it makes it a little harder, right? So I think from those experience, the main thing you want to do is definitely put them at lethal range, right? But also you want to be able to read the board on which you can kill, right? Especially when you play ETG, you transform it, you minus 2k something. Be ready to just kill whatever the thing is. Not Absalom per se, unless he has multiple on his grave already, then it doesn't matter. But if it's like a Perona or Hogback, definitely get rid of it. Because it's just an extra swing for them. And then you kind of want to set up a good judge turn as well. I think that's one of the main things. You go to judge, you play down the bodies, all of them, and then you bounce one of the things back, right? So it's kind of more of a grind fest than it is a race. But I mean, it's kind of hard to explain because like in the game sense, you have to kind of like, you can't just go full face, you can't go full board, because once they Moria back to back, it's pretty much over.
Yeah, I think I can speak more of it as a Moria player. I think you got it right on the grind part of it. Obviously, you know, Moria's gonna cheat out a lot of 4-cost units, right? And you're not gonna be able to deal with it because those 5k swings, they end up stacking. And if you spend the time swinging at those units, it's sort of similar to Katakuri where you're on a time crunch, right? Katakuri has the big mom that you can't deal with. Moria has the Moria that just floods the board and you just can't deal with it after that. So it's kind of a mix between swinging at Moria's life and also keeping their board under control so that you just don't run out of cards. On the other hand, Reiju has unlimited card draw every turn with Reiju, right? So it's kind of like a swing back and forth. Reiju keeps drawing cards. Moria has several swings, and Reiju can use the rush to basically, do the debuff minus 2k attack, and then swing efficiently to get rid of those units, right? But yeah, from my side, there's no real answer. I do feel that Moria is favored on both sides, but I also admit that I feel that Reiju can take the game on both sides as well, right?
Yeah. I think the good factor of it against Sakazuki is my things aren't getting bottom decked, right? So if I just have another ETG, I could keep recurring it, and then hope that they don't have the answer, right? Because I'm not sure how the deck list is for Moria, but I think it should be pretty hard for them to have all Ice Ages on their hand.
Here's the thing: is we usually get about 1 or 2 Ice Ages a game, sometimes 3. So, and for us, it's not as expensive to get rid of your ETGs, all right? Because we're still swinging and we're still cheating out a unit while we're doing it. So Sakazuki is better at bottom decking your stuff and annoying you, but Moria is also way more aggressive in the early mid game compared to Saka's, right? Saka's will just swing 5, maybe 6 sometimes, and you'll just counter out of everything. So okay, we do have time for probably one last matchup. I know you said something about the Yamato matchup being a little bit easier. I think a lot of people would love hearing about it, so can you briefly explain that?
Okay. So actually on this game, I did not draw stage. I didn't find stage at all. But the general game plan, honestly, for Reiju is, so the perfect line, right, is obviously you have this, right? And then the main thing is this, and then 7 draw. So you'll notice all the games kind of revolve around this. But the main reason is because it just swings every single turn, and then they can't get rid of it, right? So for Yamato, most of the time you want to go first to kind of deny them from being able to attack first. So if they attack, a lot of people would opt to counter off the first attack, but I honestly think you just take that first attack because it's going to require 2 cards from you, right? You take 2 cards, you toss out 2 cards, you're going to run out of fuel, right? Sooner or later. So I end up to take it because also another thing that can happen is if you counter off, next turn, they Onami and then swing with their leader. you're definitely losing 2 cards, right? You're losing 2 cards from your life, which is even worse from my experience. So main thing you want to do is obviously stage, keep up the tempo by swinging 7 with ETG, and then obviously most of the bodies they're putting down is probably Kiku Kinojo or some other like 4 or 3 drop. So Niji plays the whole like yellow deck again, which you just bounce everything, slow down their tempo as much as you can, and then you just keep swinging with those. And then the main use of stage isn't really to find your pieces, it's more so to get rid of your dead cards and build hand counters in your hand.
I do have a question though, because like you don't really have any blockers outside of Queen. So what if they just, you say you take the first hit, you take the 9k, right? So what about next turn they swing 11 at you?
So if they swing 11, I'll honestly just take it again.
And go down to 0?
Yeah, I'll go down to 0. Because what's going to happen is, with the big bodies I have on board, right? I'll have a 7, I'll have a Niji, and then I'll have my leader, right? So on every turn that he's swinging at me, I'm swinging with him with 1, 2, 3 things, right? So on his last attack, he has to be able, like, if he doesn't play any blockers, he's going to die, right? So on that last attack, if he just wants to, he'll put everything on his leader and max swing me. But I think by that point, I've played so many Yamato matches where if they max swing me on that last turn, I have enough, like more than enough to counter off everything that they have. Maybe on that turn, I'll probably play like a Queen, right? Just to draw a little bit more and also develop a blocker. Force him to play Hody Jones or something.
Yep.
But even then, Hody Jones plus leader, that's what the guy tried to do for me. He didn't have enough to kind of go for game. But also on that game, I think he was playing it wrong because he wasn't what do you call this? He wasn't max swinging me. What he was doing with me having no stage is he was developing bodies, which I think isn't the way that you play if you see me with no stage. So he was swinging 8, I think. So obviously, if it's an 8k, I'm gonna counter it. That's just 2 2ks, right?
Right.
But anything more than that, I think you just take him because you're putting him on a clock as well. So it's kind of like a race. You race them down. Obviously, they do it a little bit better. But with your card draws from your stage and discards and everything like that, you should be able to kind of outrace him if he goes for game and then you just have all the counters.
That's very interesting. I'm definitely gonna test this theory. But like the scariest thing for me, right, is just 9 swing, 11 swing, Hody. That's gonna be like a 6 or like a 5 and 11 swing.
Mm-hmm.
I guess even if you counter out of that 11, or no, you definitely have enough counters since you just took both.
Yeah. Yep.
Wow. Okay.
So you just a lot of counters. So you don't rely on your blockers because most of the time they're all gone, right? Yep. There's actually on that game, I actually swung with my Queen because I knew I had so much counters in my hand. So it doesn't matter if he goes all in or not because I had enough counters in my hand. My main goal on that game was just to put him on a clock because if he ends up putting that Momonosuke and then he gains a life, it just makes it that much harder for me.
Wow, that's awesome. Cool. Well, Ren, thank you so much. This was a lot of info. I think a lot of people are going to be really happy. The Reiju enjoyers, they're going to feast on the second half of this video. So do you mind, we're going to wrap this up, but do you mind just, plugging in your socials, your YouTube channel? It's going to be in the description below, guys. And any of the shout outs to your team or the friends that you play tested with, all that stuff.
Yeah. So first thing, I want to shout out to my locals that I play in. We're in NorCal. We see the SF boys quite a bit, but personally haven't met Adrian. But I've met some of the people like Steven and all of them, and it's always fun and good to play against them because they're pretty competitive, right? And also just shout out to everyone from NorCal, CSG, Chewy, Warren, everyone in that local scene. We honestly started off pretty slow, but then Chewy kind of brought it up, right? He's the first one that became competitive. He got a serialized Luffy, got all of us jealous. Warren ended up getting one. Wraith Talks Awaken TCG ended up getting one, and then finally I ended up getting one. So it's just a growing community in our locals. Everyone's pretty competitive. Everyone's welcoming. Just want to put it out. This is my first TCG, so it was, like someone from not being able to play any TCGs before. This was definitely a fun experience for me to go through this timeline of kind of competing with everyone else. And then also just shout out to my Twitter account, X. It's Kabayan TCG, or I think it's Clarence Kabayan. And also my YouTube. I just put up like some videos from time to time, deck profiles, some gameplays here and there. If you guys want, just follow and then give it a look. And yeah, thank you for Adrian for giving me this opportunity to talk to you guys and kind of just give this deck profile for you guys.
Yeah. So you guys are going to be seeing a little bit more of Ren. He did join our testing group after this weekend, and it's because we really respect him as a player. We think he has a lot to contribute, and hopefully we'll see some collabs from time to time. But yeah, guys, East Bay sneak peek preview. We do have a regional in-house tournament that we're sort of setting up. It's going to be San Francisco SF versus East Bay versus South Bay. Ren is part of that East Bay team. Honestly, they're kind of stacked, so I'm not sure if we can compete against them, but look forward to that. Ren, thank you so much for taking the time out. This was a really, really great deck profile, and I think everyone's gonna agree that it's one of the most in-depth profiles we've seen on the YouTube platform for One Piece. So definitely check out his socials, follow him on Twitter, subscribe to his YouTube channel, and yeah, I mean, ask him for coaching for Reiju, because that's what I'm gonna do too. But yeah, see you guys later. Have a good one. Bye.
All right, later.